Hello and welcome to another episode of the Abundantly Successful Show, the show for conscious entrepreneurs who have the deep desire to turn their passion into a successful and thriving business, all by making a big impact in the world. I'm your host, Kay Sanders, also known as the creator of possibilities. And our topic today is going to be a little interesting. So if you've ever thought about becoming a speaker or maybe going even into maybe TEDx Talks or a TED Talks, our guest expert today is Corey Poirier. And he has done many, many TED Talks. He's also known as that speaker guy. So as the title suggests, he knows a little bit about speaking. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Corey. Hello, Corey. Thanks for being here. Great to have you.
Hey, Kay. Thanks so much. I'm super excited to be here. And it's one of those days where it's kind of rainy out. So I love doing interviews on rainy days. That sounds strange, but I can't be out in the sun. I might as well be trying to make some magic happen and hopefully adding value for people.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've heard your stuff. I've, stalked you for a little bit. I mean, we've known each other for a while, so I know you're definitely going to share a lot of great content with us. But before we dive in, why don't you share with us a little bit like who you are, what you do, and my most favorite question is why you do what you do.
So that is a great question. And so I guess the who I am, I always kind of start, I don't go, back to childhood and then stay there, but I will at least say, in terms of who I am, I was raised by a single mother, and I always add that in because I think it played a big part in who I ended up becoming. My father lived 15 minutes away, but he wasn't really in my life. And so my mother was my constant sort of influence and guiding, light, who I saw, and her actions are what I kind of lived up to, if you will. My grandfather played a part in raising me as well. So those two were a big part of my life. Secondary part that played a big impact on my life, and I think I'm going to say I think it helped me evolve into who I am, is I barely graduated high school. And it really sounds weird to me these days when I say this, but I don't feel as bad when I know that a lot of kids just get pushed through grades now, even if they didn't pass. But my last year in high school, one of my teachers gave me a 49+1, and a passing grade would have been a 50. And so it was like he wanted to kind of put the sort of the knife in the back to say, you didn't really graduate, I gave you the point. And I needed that course. So I always say technically I didn't graduate, but somehow in the books I did. And so it sounds strange that would be a big moment in my life, but obviously it still speaks to me today, almost 30 years later. And I think it's because it's basically, it's one of those moments in life where you realize that somebody's trying to tell you something. You didn't give it your all. You didn't deserve this. I'm going to give it to you, but I want you to always remember that you basically didn't get it on your own. And I don't know why, and maybe he didn't even, I like to think that he had this big grandiose plan with that. He might have just said, you know what, you got a 49, and I'm not going to fail you over 1 point, so I'll give you the one. Whatever the reason was, that's why I graduated. So that's a part of who I am as well. And then to finish this long story off, I'll just say, what I do now, which is a big part of who I am also, is, as you mentioned, I'm a speaker. I spend a lot of my times speaking on stages in front of audiences, hoping to reveal exclusive insight to somebody that they can use in their life to become the best version of themselves possible, whether that's personally or professionally in a business or the work they do. And why I do it is because people had a ripple on me when I was younger, so they had this impact. I call it the ripple effect, but they had this impact, and they didn't even realize it. They did something good or bad, and I was just talking about, right, a teacher that basically failed me had this impact all these years later. And so I wanted to try to have a positive ripple and impact on people maybe 50 years from now. Maybe they'll say, the speaker one time, I don't even remember his name, I don't remember what he talked about, but I remember this one thing. And if that's all they remember, then that's all that matters to me, because at least I've had a ripple in their life somehow. And to finish this off, that's why I got into helping speakers launch their speaking careers, is because I knew that was a way I could have an indirect ripple that would maybe live as long as me or maybe even beyond me. So that was a long answer, Kay, but raised by a single mother, barely graduated high school. It essentially evolved me into who I am now, which is a business professional and an entrepreneur who wants to help other people become the best version of themselves, because I like to create an impact. That's my summary.
I love it because I mean, you know, that's like also my model. Like if I could just impact one person each and every day, I mean, that's what makes my day because as you mentioned, you have that ripple effect. So I mean, I definitely love your story. But now, you know, let's talk a little bit about like, you know, I guess let's start out with, since the topic today is about, you know, securing and delivering TEDx Talks, what exactly are like TED Talks, TEDx Talks? When the first time I heard about it, I'm like, what is that? So I'm pretty sure some of the audience, they might ask the same question. So maybe we could start with that.
So, you know what? I'll start in a weird way. I've never described it this way before, but it's almost like Oscar auditions for speakers. I don't like it's the red carpet for speakers. To get a TED or a TEDx talk is basically, it's not, you know what? It doesn't sort of make everybody's career. Not every TEDx talk or TED talk gets viewed millions of times, but going back to our point about impacting one person, almost every TED talk, well, they're all viewed more than once. So they all have the potential to impact at least one person's life and ideally more. But in terms of maybe what they are and why they became so big, they were put together, and I looked this up years ago, and I think I still have it right, but TED stands for Technology, Education, and Design. And so it's a conference that was built around, let's bring people together that are in the technology world, the education world, and the design world, and get them to share messages that other people want to spread that could potentially change the world. And they built it around a certain format. So, for instance, is TEDx talks typically can't be longer than 18 minutes. I think most events will tell you 15 because they want to make sure that you have a buffer, but I don't think they'll even put them on YouTube or TED.com or anywhere if they're over 18 minutes. So that's the idea is, can you share a thought and an idea in 15 minutes that can change somebody's life? And I spoke to at the last TEDx event I spoke to one of the organizers, and he just defined what they're looking for in a speaker better than I think I've ever heard it before. What he said is, we're not necessarily as focused on the idea as we are, can you share an idea that people haven't heard in a certain way before and share it in a way they've never heard before, but have them understand it?
That's interesting.
So they're unique new ideas that are shared with the idea that people will spread them and share them with the masses, and that maybe they can influence a ripple that have the potential to impact the world. And that's a big grandiose summary on my end of what a TED Talk is or a TEDx talk. But what they become is sort of the sexy talk for speakers that have the potential to really make people think and question the way they do things and maybe make changes in their life. So that was a long answer. I don't know, Kay, if
No,
that's
I
something
like that. You know, I mean, I've heard about it so many times. I know that they're short talks, but you just really painted a nice, really picture that made a lot more sense because I still didn't really know exactly what it was. But now, is there a difference between TED Talk and a TEDx talk?
Yes. So there is I'll say it this way, there is to the organizers, and there is oftentimes to the speakers, and there certainly is to the speakers that would have spoken, let's say, on the main stage years ago, but to the viewer or audience member or the average person, I would maybe say a resounding no. So why I say this is because there's a difference in terms of there's not, like when you watch the events, they don't look different, but there's a different in terms of what the TEDx events are allowed to do, what they're allowed to say. Traditionally, the main TED event is once a year. So a lot of people don't know that. It's kind of one event once a year in Vancouver, in British Columbia, in Canada. And it's taken place, it used to be, I think, in Silicon Valley, but I might be wrong there. But it takes place once a year. And so I think they put on the stage, I might be wrong in this, but I think somebody, last I heard, said 70 speakers over a conference over a few days. And so that's the main TED event. And then all these other events we hear about called TEDx are essentially independently organized by organizers in a local area, but they have to adhere to all the main TED rules. Like they have a whole big, manual of what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And because of that, that's why I believe, Kay, that the TEDx events have held the same prestige and the same brand name in the eyes of the average person. So when people say, I saw you deliver a TED Talk, or I saw you deliver a TEDx Talk, most people don't distinguish between the two.
Okay. So basically it's like a sister thing from the TEDx are the sister thingy from the TED Talk, basically.
You got it.
Okay. Now for business owners, I mean, why would it be beneficial for a business owner to go on, do TED Talks or TEDx Talks?
So there's a number of reasons. I would say, okay, so it depends what your end goal is. So you mentioned, why do I do what I do? So as a business owner, if your goal is to get your message out, whatever your story is, to positively impact lives, and that sounds, again, uppity or grandiose, but if your goal is to change lives, then the reason you would want to do it is because it's an amazing platform to do it. And people know when they watch your talk, that's what they're coming to do it. Here's one thing I'll add, and then I'll explain why you would want to do it from a grow your business point of view. But here's another thing that exists within TED and TEDx that a lot of people don't know. You go watch the talks and you'll see this, but people don't think of this. If you walk on that stage, a TEDx or a TED stage, and start talking about your company by name, your video probably will never be aired. You're not allowed to say the name of your company. You're not allowed to wear, and most of the times, and I can't speak, there's not absolutes because some organizers might not follow the rules properly, but you're not allowed to wear branded clothing. And here's the wild part. Can't even be the tag on the back because they don't want to have any chances that, you're trying to sneak something in. So it's not supposed to even be branded on the back. Like, you're supposed to cut the tag off type thing. It's pretty intense. And the reason they do all that is because they want to keep it strategic and positioned the way it's always been. And they want to make sure the rules can't be flexible so that people don't start making an event that doesn't look like a TEDx event. So I say this because some people think, well, I'm going to go in, deliver a TED Talk, and then it's going to take my business to new levels because everybody's going to hear my business name. And odds are they're never going to hear your business name. You'll even see that when people are authors, what they do is they say, you should check out my new book. And then, they won't say check out my new book. They can't say it like a branded message, but they might say, when I was writing my new book. But they can't say the name of what the book is. So, when I was writing my new book, this happened, or what have you. So when I say that, why, from a branding point of view, why would you want to then do a TEDx talk for your business? It's because what happens is, like anything, if people see your talk and love it, they're going to seek your name out. So they're going to see your TEDx talk, and they're going to see the name as Kay Sanders, and then they're going to start Googling you. They're going to get to your website. They're going to find out about your book. They're going to find out about your business. So they're going to seek it out because you delivered a talk that spoke to them. Another reason is because even outside of the ones that seek it out, let's say you're trying to get a door open for yourself. You're trying to get a publisher to consider you. You're trying to get a spot on a radio show. You're trying to get a book deal. You're trying to get on a stage. Well, what I can tell you, Kay, is in my introduction, without me coaching people to say it, more often than not, the most common thing people say is, he's a multiple-time TEDx speaker. So it holds enough weight that's what the intro, that's what people feel they should say. So, when you think about that, that's pretty powerful that somebody's saying, well, our next guest is a multiple-time TEDx speaker, quicker than they're saying an international best-selling author. So what I would say is it opens doors and adds credibility, unlike what you'll get traditionally. And then I guess the third reason is because once you can deliver a message like that, if you can deliver a message my last talk was 5 minutes. So if you can deliver a powerful message or something that even makes sense in that amount of time, that's only going to be good for your business and brand, and people are going to view you in a different light. So those are kind of, I guess I'll say, the three benefits to your business. People will seek you out. People are going to see you in a different light. And of course, from a branding point of view, it's going to have a prestige. People are going to say, well, I need to talk to this person. He's a TED speaker. And that's what they say. They usually don't even say TEDx. This guy's a TED speaker. Or they'll use terminology that you can tell they don't watch a lot. They'll say, this guy's a TED talker, stuff like that. And it all works. A friend of mine, Richard St. John, who has one of his TED Talks is viewed, I think, now 15+ million times. And he calls them TEDsters. And these are the people that go to TED events and speak at TED events. So, yeah, so there's a whole, that's the other thing, too. There's almost a whole culture built around these events. But, yeah, that's what it does. It opens doors for you.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds that way. So it's like, I always thought, like, when you are a best-selling author, that opens doors for you. But it sounds like being a TEDx talker or like, going on TEDx. See, I didn't even say that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all good.
It opens a whole lot more doors because it sounds like a lot more people actually get to see it then.
Well, and I'll add this in, Kay, and take this for what it's worth and with a grain of salt, because you and I both have best-selling books, and we both know that opens doors as well. Mm-hmm. I think the reason, if I'm being full disclosure, I think the reason that, and especially if you compare somebody that has they're a best-selling author with a Kindle, but they haven't ever released a printed book. I think what happens now is a lot of people more people are releasing books than ever before, and a lot more people know with a bigger market, it's maybe easier a little bit. It's not easier to get maybe a bestseller in the top 10, but it's easier to get a bestseller in some way, shape, or form, whether that's maybe, the top 100 list of one category. And so I think what happens is they know it's harder to get on a TEDx stage now than perhaps to have a book out. There's more opportunity, and that's not a bad thing, but there's more opportunity for releasing a book than there ever has been before. And so I think people know that now. And so they just view a book maybe a little differently than they used to. That being said, people still, in my bio, the second thing they say is author. So it still has a lot of weight. I would just say maybe it's because people know the point of entry and the ease of entry are different. Like, as you know, Kay, now you can self-publish, write a book. Nobody can tell, there's nobody that can stand in front of you and say, you can't have a book on eBay. Or, sorry, Amazon, or you can have it on eBay as used as well, or even new. But there's nobody that can say you can't do that. Whereas with the TEDx Talks, somebody can say you can't do it, the organizers. Mm-hmm. So does that kind of...
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Now, I think also it's like, writing a book is much easier than standing on stage and talking in front of all these people. I know for me, like for years, I was really totally afraid of actually talking. Now I'm getting used to it. I've been doing a lot of talks like just virtually, and now my next step is going to on stage. So I think, just thinking about TEDx, you're going to be on video, right? It's going to be recorded. Millions of people could possibly see that, which can add a little stress to that, right?
For sure. And one of the people that we've had on the show recently, she has I'm going to say, I think a TEDx talk, and I'm going to say, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the title without looking, but it's something like What It's Like to Be a Woman in Hollywood. And so she was an actress for years, and she went up against all the challenges females have in Hollywood. And she decided she's been an advocate for this, getting females more roles. And now she's a director. She makes her own movies, and she's been an advocate for this for a long time. So she recorded a TEDx talk, I want to say maybe a year ago, before the Me Too movement started. So it might be longer than a year ago. Whatever timeline the Me Too movement started, she was before that. And her talk was released before that. And I want to go by memory and say, I think at the time, her talk may have been like 70, 80,000, which is still a really well-viewed talk. But once the Me Too movement happened, within about a month, she told me, or maybe a month and a half, she jumped to like 500,000. And I haven't looked in a while, but she was at 700,000 the last time I looked. So she'll probably have a million viewed TEDx talk for a topic that probably nobody was even interested in hearing about until the Me Too movement. So why I say this, Kay, is you're right. She would have never probably dreamed a million people might view her TEDx talk. They could have, but she didn't probably think that was, or she didn't maybe go into it saying this will happen. But as you said, it's always possible. You could have a video that goes viral because you talked about knitting dog sweaters, and then the cutest dog in the world gets on Ellen with a knitted sweater. So, the point is, you're right. Nobody knows how far it could go. So it's always the what if that maybe scares people into making sure they do their best to knock it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the type of talks, you mentioned earlier, like, something very inspirational that can make a difference. I've, seen a couple of TED Talks, but like some were kind of weird in a way. So, what would be some really good for like business owners? What would be a good TED Talk or a topic to talk about?
So, it's kind of wild because I would say, on one end, I'll say the sky's the limit. But on the other end, I'll say, so for me, like I think about storytelling. I'm all about storytelling always. So I would say, first of all, what does your business do? And so we could go any realm. We could go yogurt. We could go, I just happened to see a yogurt for later on sitting at my desk. We could go, maybe they publish books. Whatever that is, what they need to find is a unique story angle on what they do to share that in a way that people haven't heard before. And I'm being general because it's so wide open depending on what their business is. But what you want to talk about is something that impacts people, and sharing it in a way either they've never thought about it before, or if they have thought about it in a way that they haven't heard it before. So, as an example, I saw somebody that's trying to get into automated cars, like trying to get into technology that he wants to get sold into automated cars. And he delivered a TEDx talk around the idea of what's going to happen, let's say in Los Angeles, when all of a sudden there's nobody driving cars, and there's automated cars, which have the potential, to go off the track because an error happens. Or then he went into about flying vehicles, which actually Uber's working on right now in LA, testing. So, I mean, and he talked about, we have bad drivers now. There's TV shows dedicated to the worst drivers. And what is it going to be like when they're trying to fly a car? So he made it funny and everything else, but then it related to his business, because his business is in relation to trying to help. And I can't remember exactly how he's doing it, because that's his world, not mine, but trying to work with the technology that's in vehicles. So, that could be one example. And, I mentioned maybe that you're a book publisher. So if you're a book publisher, maybe you talk about, this is what the print world looks like now. People think it's dead. And here's what we've done to, try something brand new in a world where people are saying otherwise. Nobody wants to buy books anymore. Nobody's interested. But yet we're still having success, and here's what we're doing. So it's what they're doing that's unique. One last example, and this is a real world example. I know somebody who used to have, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he had a record company. And I think their name was Network Records. But he had the Bare Naked Ladies, popular band, popular Canadian band, but also have done really well in the U.S. They actually wrote the theme song for Big Bang Theory. So people know the theme song where it goes bang at the end. It's them that sings that song. And then Sarah McLachlan, who's kind of a worldwide sort of sensation. He had these big artists signed to his label, but he recognized the record industry was dying. And we all know it's taken a big hit, meaning people aren't buying as many CDs anymore. So what he did was he actually changed the structure of his company and made the artists basically partners in the company. And then he found new ways to distribute music. So the Bare Naked Ladies were one of the first that when you went to watch sort of concerts live, before you left, you could actually buy a USB with the concert you just watched on it. So they were making the concert and finishing it up while people were walking out. And if you want, by the time you got to the thing, they were starting to cycle through them. I don't know how they did it, how they efficiently set that up. But the point is, he could go and deliver a TEDx talk saying, here's what I did in the record business because I recognize the writing on the wall. And then he might turn it into, here's how you can innovate with your own company. Here's the 3 things I did that allowed me to make my company different and still successful in a time when all the larger record companies were folded. So okay. Those are 3 perspectives. So, but you'll see a common theme, right? It's how are you doing something different in the industry to deal with the problem that the industry is facing, and nobody else has really discovered how to deal with it yet.
I like that. So, at what point of, being in business should entrepreneurs really think about, okay, maybe now it would be a good way to start with a TEDx? I mean, should they already be a speaker, or can they just start out with TEDx talks, or what's your point of view on that?
It's a great question. And what I would say is, a lot of times, Kay, I'll answer with, it depends, rather than a straight yes or no, because there's some variables there. But what I will say is, if you're comfortable, well, I'll say it this way. You don't want to discover when you're about to deliver your TEDx talk that you can't be on a stage. That you just basically can't speak, your mouth won't open. I mean, we see what happens sometimes when people get in front of the cameras. So you don't want to discover that day. So what I would say is, you don't have to be a seasoned speaker by any stretch. There's a lot of, like when I go to, when I'm at TEDx Talks where I'm speaking, there's at least, if there's 7 people backstage, I talk to people throughout leading up to our talks and there's at least 2 or 3 that they've never delivered, let's say, a paid talk before. Some of them have only maybe been on the stage in high school doing public speaking contests. So they really haven't done much in the way of speaking, but they've at least been on a stage once in front of an audience to know that they're not going to pass out. So what I would say is, in my opinion, if you're wondering if you're ready, get on a stage. It can't hurt to go to a Toastmasters meeting or a Rotary meeting or something and just get up and speak for 10 minutes and see how you deal with it. And so I would say, for my own perspective, if I were that person, I'd at least want to be on a stage before I delivered my TEDx talk, because delivering a TEDx talk is a whole different beast. Many of the speakers that I've been behind the scenes with at the events, some who've delivered thousands of talks, say it, and they all agree, then say that it's the most nervous they've ever been to deliver a talk. I mentioned Richard St. John, 15+ million views, was already a speaker, had been to 10 TEDx conferences or 10 TED main conferences. And he said again, he echoed, it was the most nerve-wracking talk he's ever done. So knowing that, I think you'd want to go into it with at least a little bit of stage time. So I would just say, if you're a business owner and you're not sure yet if you should jump on a TEDx or TED stage, what I would say is jump into something like a Toastmasters. And for people that don't know Toastmasters, it's basically a group that get together as a chapter, various locations across the world, and you speak in front of them, they speak in front of you. It just, everybody works together to help each other get better as a speaker.
Okay.
So go do that and get yourself on stage and comfortable on stage.
Now, one thing that I heard, I don't know if you had told me or if I heard it from someone else, but is it true that you have to practice your TED Talks at least 2,000 times or 200 times or something like that? I don't remember what it was, before you're actually allowed to give that talk on stage?
I've never heard that in my life before.
No? Okay, then
and you know what? If it's true, I snuck in. Because nobody's checking how many times I'm practicing. I've never had anybody say, how many times did you practice it? What I do though, so what I do to practice it is when I'm driving around, I have my phone on, down in the car somewhere on record, and I just rhyme through the talk over and over and over again until it's second nature. But the most that I've had done is I've done the auditions where they audition to make sure. I've sent in the video where they basically book me based on the video, and I've also done I guess I'll say pre-presentation presentations where they get me to basically over Skype present to some of the organizers. But in that case, at least the last one I did, they already decided I was the person, but they wanted to make sure that my talk was ready. And so I had to kind of present to them before the presentation just for them to feel comfortable it was ready. But that wasn't what got me booked. But I've had to do, I see my cat wants to say hi. I've had to do, that's, by the way, being a lifestyle entrepreneur. That's the benefit and the bad is the cat decides that it wants to say hello when you're working from home that day. But yeah, so I've had both experiences where I've had to do an audition or submit stuff to be considered. And then I've had ones where they say, we want you to do a pre-presentation. Mm-hmm. And so, but I've never heard of anybody timing ask. And you know what, if they ask me, are they going to sit there and watch me do 200 practices? Unless they're going to do that, isn't it all just me saying yes? Isn't it just an honor system then? So I haven't heard of it, but maybe it exists in one of the, maybe there's an organizer that did that, or maybe it's an urban myth that they spread because they want people to be terrified or ready. But I haven't come across that yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't remember where I got that from, but I think it was either something like 200 times or 2,000 times? I don't remember. But, whenever, I did watch some TED Talks, it flowed. There was no ums, no stutters. So I figured they must be practicing a whole lot, because I know for me, even though, I practice like the talking and, I've been doing interviews, I still do a lot of ums and, and stutter and stumble over my words. So, I'm guessing they must be practicing a whole lot before they get on station, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say that I don't think I would have practiced 200 times, but I certainly would have for at least two of the talks at least 50 times. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly not the first time I've heard it, but then bear in mind, I've been speaking now for 16 years on stages. So, and my first talks were horrible. People think, oh, it must be natural if you're speaking that often and that many times. No, it was horrible. And I was that guy that can't remember what I said and turn colors, shades of color and everything else. My first time on a stage in stand-up comedy, I told my first two jokes without the mic turned on. I was not ready. And so what I will say, though, is as somebody who had already maybe spoken hundreds of times at least before my first TEDx talk, maybe I practiced 50 times, but again, maybe I'm also the 10,000 hour rule. I'm practicing it already because I already have those hundreds of times of practicing speaking behind me. So I guess I can't speak for my first talk I did. I was already out in the stages and speaking. So I can't say that, that I didn't have 200 hours worth of practice, but I can tell you I didn't sit there and record myself 200 times.
Gotcha. Okay.
But by the way, I will add, sorry, Kay, I should interject too and add that in terms of when you mentioned they seem polished, the 3 events I was involved in, my talks weren't edited, but I know that some will edit if need be. And so sometimes that happens. You can usually tell, I think, because it's maybe a different, you can see a segue, like a different angle on the person or something, a second camera or something. But most are not done like that. But I think what's happened is if it was a really horrible talk or there was 1,000 ums and ahs, it probably wouldn't make it. Probably wouldn't get to video. That's my guess. I'm not on the inside of it seeing what happens in the machine, but that'd be my guess. But you're right. Most of them seem very fluid. But then at the same time, most of the ones we watch are the ones that have thousands of views and not the ones that have 30. So maybe maybe if you watched a TEDx talk every day and you just randomly typed in the words and picked one, and you watched some that were at a smaller venue or smaller audience, maybe it would be, maybe you'd see ums and ahs. But you're right, most of them seem very polished.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay,
so just
that
practice
makes sense.
is the answer. Definitely practice 200 times. That's subjective.
Okay, sounds good. So now, where would we start? So if someone that's listening says, what, I really want to give this a try. I've been practicing, I've been speaking. Where do I start? What do I do?
So now you're talking, what do I start in terms of getting on a TED stage?
Yeah, just getting a TED Talk. So let's say they want to get into TEDx talking or TED talking. Like, where do they start? What should they do?
So there's definitely a system for doing this. And I would say the easiest answer, first of all, is it's some back stuff you have to do. Like I believe in the whole, I think it's Franklin Covey that said about the importance of measuring twice and cutting once rather than the other way around. So doing more preparation. So
Gotcha.
Doing the preparation before you execute. A lot of people just jump in and wing it. And that might land you with luck at TEDx Talk, but probably won't. Just give you a perspective. I would say about 7%, 5 to 7% of people that submit applications are selected. And it's probably lower than that, but I'm including the small events where they might only get 100 applications. So I have somebody that I'm guiding right now through a documentary about getting a TEDx Talk. And I can't say much more than that right now, but what I will say is she got her, I'll call it her rejection notice on her first one, and they said, we had more than 100 applicants and we could only select 6. And then so I said, I'll agree to read one of my early rejections as well, and mine said we had 99 and we could only select 10 or whatever the numbers were. So that's where I'm getting the 5 to 7%, but there's some that have probably 1,000 applicants and only select 5. The number's usually only 5 or 10. So once you get into those, it could be down to 1% or less. So when I say that, I think your odds increase if you do more preparation. So what does that preparation look like? It could mean deciding where you want to speak. So where are you willing to travel for a TEDx event? Because the reason you want to know that is because then you're going to start searching the TEDx events in that area. Like, I'm a big believer in efficiency. So don't spend your time searching for TEDx events across the country if you're not willing to travel across the country to deliver it. Know as well that that you also don't, as far as the TEDx events, you don't get paid. So a lot of people don't realize that. Tony Robbins, when you watch his TED Talk, you watch Bill Clinton's, to my understanding, they never got paid a penny. Bill Gates, so you're not going to get paid probably. They may pay for your travel, but let's assume they don't. So you want to figure out where you are willing to speak, and then you want to find out which events are in that area. Then your next step is you want to get really crystal clear on your idea, because you now have to pitch an idea probably through a website. And you have to pitch this idea, so you need to be crystal clear on how you're going to present it, how it's going to be different, and how it's going to make sense, so that you can pitch it to them in a way that makes it sound different and that it sounds like it's an idea that they could put on their stage and people are going to talk about. So I would say get crystal clear on your idea, and then, of course, you want to then flesh out your idea. You want to maybe practice it a few times before you pitch it, because then you'll have a better feel for it. And then, of course, the big step is then pitching it. So when I say pitching, usually it'll have a nomination form on the website. So you go find and nominate whatever it is, nominate yourself, nominate a speaker, whatever it is, go to that spot, and then get really, before you don't just jump in and start filling it out, actually read through it, think about what they're saying, maybe then take a break and maybe strategize around, print it out. And if it asks, describe your TEDx talk in 2 sentences, I'd rather see you practice that, and then even maybe sit with somebody else and say, what do you think, rather than just filling it out online and sending. And then you basically want to, from that point, once you decide that you're ready, you fill it out, send it in, and then it's one of those hope for the best, wait to hear back from them, and proceed accordingly. If it's a rejection, don't get yourself down. Say, how can I apply to the next one? Maybe ask them, when is the next time around that I can apply to this one? And then proceed accordingly. I'm leaving a lot of steps out there. I think okay, we talked about it. I have a whole TEDx program, and so that's like 8 weeks. So, there's a lot more than I could ever cover in a short interview, but that's the basic nutshell of what the process looks like. You just have to find out where the talk is, figure out what your idea is, get really crystal clear on your idea, know how you want to pitch it, go to the website, find the nomination spots, and then fill out the application, send it in, and cross your fingers.
So basically what you're saying is the actual talking is the easy part.
By the time you get on that stage, you've gone through a lot of stuff. Yeah, the talking, because then if you get accepted, they're probably going to say, we want you to fly here for an audition. And then, or you might be nearby, but you got to go for an audition. And then you got to convince them that your talk is great in front of all these organizers who are studying TEDx speakers all the time. So that's nerve-wracking on its own. It's almost like going, I guess, to audition for American Idol or something. So you got to do all that too. So, and each one's different. They don't all have that audition process, but that could be what it looks like. So be prepared for that. But just know, until you get accepted, all that stuff doesn't happen. You know, you basically, the first part is research, go on the website, see what, I'll add this in too, see what speakers they brought in before, see what they have an appetite for, see what kind of topics they seem to like, get to know it before you submit it, because I'd rather spend a week or a month getting ready to submit and then submitting a good one than submitting 20 times to different TEDx events, but just doing it on a wing it type approach.
Gotcha. Wow, that definitely opened my eyes, because I actually thought, well, the talking, being on stage would be the difficult part. So you definitely opened my eyes on that. Well, you know, thank you so much for sharing all that. I think, you know, we covered a lot, like, you know, what really, you know, why is it beneficial to maybe go into TEDx Talk, like how to go about it, you know, at what point, and those type of things. So, you know, really appreciate you going so much into detail about that. Now, if any of the listeners would like to get a hold of you, find out more about you, you know, where can they find you? How can they learn a little bit more about you?
So probably the easiest spots are, if they want to learn more about the programs that I just mentioned briefly, those are at thespeakingprogram.com. So thespeakingprogram.com. If people go over there right now and sign up, they'll actually get access to free videos. I think there's 1 or 2 free videos they get, and then they'll also be notified when our free training comes out, and then they'll be notified when the new book comes out as well. So we have a book coming out too, and then also, and then when the program opens. So thespeakingprogram.com is one spot, and then on the whole other end of the spectrum, if they want to connect with me, learn more about me, want to learn more about my speaking, go to get the social media, thatspeakerguy.com. It's hard to remember the two, the and that. Thespeakingprogram.com and thatspeakerguy.com are the two kind of main hubs, if you will.
Okay, and I mean, I got all the links with the show notes anyway, so it's easy to get to it. Now, do you have also maybe a special offer you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a book that we put out a couple of years ago called Enlightened. And it's a full-size book, so it's not a 10-page PDF ebook or something. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it's a full-size book because people ask that a lot. So if you go to letsdoinfluencing.com, so again, that's letsdoinfluencing.com, and basically right there you can just sign on, grab your copy of the book, and you'll also be added to our newsletter tribe. But I always tell people it's 2K. You know, if you just want the free book, sign up and then sign right back out. You know, I only want you in the newsletter tribe if you want to be there, but you can kind of get a 2-for-1. You can get the free book, which is a full book, no cost, no hidden agenda at all. But then you'll also be signed up for a tribe, because that's the best way to deliver the book, because it's a digital book, of course. But then at the same time, if you don't want to stay on, sign back out. If you want to stay on, you'll see some great content coming out and learn more about how to get on TEDx stages and how to speak for money and how to speak for impact and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I definitely appreciate it. Now, you know, in closing, do you have any last, words of advice, any last thoughts you would like to share with us?
Yeah, just easy. To me, it's just a one-step thing. Make sure you're living your life on purpose, whether that's your business or whether that's your personal life. Make sure you've discovered what you're put here to do, and you're spending most of your time doing that, and success will come to you. To me, it's that simple. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between, but it really is that simple at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love it. I think, also if you have that vision, for what you want to do, it's going to make it so much easier. So, thank you so much, Corey, for being here, for taking your time and, also bringing your cat on it. I know she likes the camera, so thank you so much for being here and sharing all this great content. I mean, you definitely opened my eyes about the TEDx talk as well. So maybe that I'm add that to my goal list on my wall.
Love it. And yeah, it's funny. You're right. The cat loves the camera so much. So that's why I moved the camera a couple times, is because she decided she still wanted to be in the screen. Normally she gives up after 5 minutes and everybody gets to see her. But today she's on fire. So
she loves the energy that we're putting out here.
It must be that. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Kay.
No problem. And I also want to thank you, for tuning in again. I hope, we open your eyes, on like the speaking and, how beneficial it can be if you go into TEDx or TED Talks. If you want to have more information about it, definitely reach out to him. I mean, he is really a great guy when it comes to the speaking. I mean, I've learned a lot from him as well. But, you know, like, you really get out there. I mean, one of the things, like yesterday, I released an episode about, you know, sharing your message in a book, you know, and even just sharing your message on stage. I mean, he mentioned it earlier. You can impact so many people with just one TEDx talk. And even if it might not get millions and millions of views, but if you can just impact a few people or just one person, there is a ripple effect. So go out there, share your message. I mean, that's what we're here. That's what we're bringing you these interviews to really help you get out there, because you have a gift, you have a message to share. So go out there and share. Okay. So with that said, you know, if you have any comments, if you like this video, you know, like it, comment, share it, you know, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you will be notified of the next upcoming interviews. I have a lot more great speakers lined up for you. So, you know, make sure you leave a comment below. If you have any questions, you can also leave a comment below as well. I'll let Corey know, or he probably looks at it as well. And, you know, also check out the website abundantly-successful.com for the show notes, for the previous episodes, you know, so just you can get all the information there. With that said, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have an abundantly and successful day.